to be the same match you played earlier.
But that's where that experience comes in. You know it's not going to be the same match, but you can swap it up, and it's time to head into the grand finals here at EUIC. Incineroar, Fluttermane for Tim, and over on the opposing end, Porygon 2, Incineroar. Let's get it started.
Yes, Incineroar, the king of VGC, out on the field. Perfect positioning for Nils here to try and maybe enable to get that Trick Room up. But Tim reading into it perfectly, bringing that taunting Fluttermane onto the field to try and ruin Porygon 2's day.
And what I love about the Fluttermane having the taunt, since it is a ghost type, it can't be faked out by the Incineroar. Normally you can see these leads coming out from Nils, so you can make sure that your Porygon 2 isn't too pressured the first time around. So this is going to be tough. Since the Porygon 2 is going to be the ghost type, I mean, you won't be worried about the fake out. It's always going to be about the taunt here.
Yes, exactly, and that's the pressure that Fluttermane wants to put down on the field. My question now is how these trainers are going to be able to switch things up, because at the minute, it looks a little neutral. The Incineroars want to be able to have that fake out pressure. They want to be able to go for those parting shots and bring a Pokemon in from the back. But Nils is not going to be able to get the Trick Room up here if that taunt is coming into that slot.
And for Tim, you need to make sure that you're shutting things down and making the most of the momentum that you have with this lead. And the Porygon 2 swapping out. I'm curious what Tim's going to be doing here. It's going to be Ursaluna, the chosen one, right away to be making an appearance.
Porygon 2 knowing it cannot thrive on the field there, bringing in the Ursaluna as the fake out goes down into the opposing.
Oh, schön Nils, schön. Und da hat er seinen Flame-Up aktiviert.
As the Incineroar on Tim's side, unable to move. There goes the burn. Guts is activated. Now things look a little dicey for Tim.
If you can be bringing the Ursaluna in mid-turn, you don't have to have that turn of protect to wait for the Flame-Up to activate. Sure, you're taunted, you can't protect past the next turn, but you now have that burn, you now have the capability to off-putting a lot of pressure here. You don't want to be taking too much damage, but at the same time, if Tim's not taking a KO onto this Ursaluna, with something like the Facade or Headlong Rush into either of these Pokemon, well, it's going to be a clean KO.
That's the thing, Headlong Rush can only target one of these Pokemon, but it's going to be a very easy knockout. You don't want to go for Facade with something like the Fluttermane on the field, and the Earthquake is going to be able to hurt your partner Incineroar as well. So I think if you're Nils, you just want to start getting those clean and easy knockouts with the Headlong Rush. On Tim's side, though, now you've got to play defensively, and again, this is something that Nils can punish. Nils is actually going to take the defensive option, bringing that Incineroar out to intimidate later on, bringing in the bulkier Pokemon like Porygon 2.
And the Porygon 2, now the taunt, it is gone. Download, that will be the attack boost, so not going to be relevant too much for that one. Is Moonblast, the target into the Ursaluna, start chipping away at this Pokemon. Parting shot, this will be a chance for Tim to pivot and lower the attack of the otherwise super mighty bear.
It's definitely one way to start countering this Guts boost, but the issue is with that Fluttermane, you're not very naturally physically defensive. So even if it is taking that little bit of a drop, something like the Headlong Rush is still going to connect in and absolutely wipe this Fluttermane off the field.
And since you have the boost over on Nils' end, it'll all be about how Pokemon are trained. This is going to be a super hefty Headlong Rush coming out into you, and Tim definitely taking the time, staying calm, looking at what's going to be best to pivot into this. Since the Porygon 2 is in, you want to make sure that you have some way of making sure this Trick Room isn't set up, so Rillaboom will hit the field. This will be the Grassy Surge as well for the grassy terrain.
Yes, this also negates the potential Earthquake that Nils could have gone for here, but instead it's that Headlong Rush straight into the
let's go! Schön!
It is gone from the field. Really like the positioning here by Tim, bringing in the Rillaboom to ensure, hey, if you want to maybe go for the Trick Room, you're going to have a bit of trouble with that. But to be honest, I want to try and stop that Ursaluna in this track. Tim is really stuck here on which Pokemon to target down with this potential fake out. There is the possibility for the Porygon 2 here at the... So actually, this one's a blind type Terastallization, no ghost type, so you can hit into it to stop it with a fake out. That does mean you would be taking an attack from the Ursaluna, and the Ursaluna, it'll either have to attack or go for a swap out on this turn, since it was haunted and doesn't have the option to protect. But Tim can also take advantage of that as well, and going for a powerful hit into it. I mean, you mentioned the Terastallization. There is the Ghost Terra type on the
Incineroar kommt
Ursaluna.
rein. Ja, er geht halt -2. Muss maybe rauswechseln. Und dann hat 2 Fake-Outs auf dem Feld, ne?
Particularly considering when the Incineroars just joined the field. A Headlong Rush into that space is going to
Das
do a lot of
K.O.-Ding
damage.
kam von
Normally
denen.
Ursaluna without the
Das One-Hit-KO-Ding kommt auch von denen.
taken one Intimidate, it can still be in range to get a KO. Now that it's maybe taken this one here, it's going to be an interesting turn.
It is slowly getting whittled and whittled down the amount of offensive output it'll be able to be putting out here. You can't potentially just go for the swap, try and get a Trick Room up, and then bring it back in later. But when you're staring down this Rillaboom and Incineroar, fake out options on both, well, the Porygon 2 doesn't feel necessarily too safe either. It is a really bulky Pokemon, but you also have to respect the fact that, hey, there is just the fake out option.
Beide rauswechseln.
And it looks like Tim is using that Incineroar to try and kind of target down the Ursaluna. The parting shot previously, the Intimidate.
Wechselt beide raus, okay. Ist fein, ist fein, fein. Aber ich glaube, Tim wird hier nicht Double Fake outen, oder? Nein. Der drückt hier doch U-Turn Abgangstirade oder so.
Safe, so Amoonguss is going to be hitting the field in its stead as the double pivot swapping out. If you don't think this one's going to be taking you too far, sure, it might feel a little bad to take that pause, take that moment, but Intimidate here will at least negate the damage coming out over on Tim's end and have these Pokemon eat the
schön in den Amoonguss-Slot. Big.
Okay, Helmet-Schaden. Rocky Helmet recoil in return.
I honestly love this play by Nils, keeping the dynamic duo in the back of the Ursaluna and the Porygon 2, bringing these two pivoting Pokemon onto the field.
Jetzt kommt Raging Bolt rein.
Shake up that ball position as well as enabling Ursaluna to come in a little bit safer later on. It also means that those Intimidates, parting shots are null and void coming out from Tim.
Ogapon.
What he's trying to do, target down that slot and apply a lot of pressure to the Ursaluna. This is one of the Pokemon that can deal a lot of damage. You can go for something like the Cudgel into that Amoonguss and try and remove it from the field. Amoonguss in an issue where it cannot go for something like a Spore. There are two grass types on the field here.
Er hat die Pepsi dabei, ja. Er trinkt schon fleißig. Weil ich habe eine Pollenpop,
ne? Looking at Nils as well. He does have a fake out on this turn, having just swapped into the Incineroar. So Tim, if you're looking to off-put some damage, you have to wonder where this fake out's going to be coming from. Since it is not going to be too pressured by the Amoonguss here, it would just be a little bit of damage. But you want to make sure you can maximize these turns while you can.
Exactly, and you can see our players taking every second here to find out where they want to pivot the Pokemon in. If you're Nils, when are you going to be able to bring that Ursaluna back on the field to get the KOs? You want to try and find a way to get rid of this Ogapon as well. It has that speed advantage as a very speedy Pokemon, and you don't want it to be able to start getting these potential critical hits coming through either. No surprise to see the fake out come through here just to protect that Amoonguss a little bit from taking any of those Ivy Cudgels.
Ist er wirklich für Spore gegangen? Hat Sludge, aber hat der Spore in den Rillaboom-Slot gedrückt, ist krank.
You do have the Incineroar then, that could be the swap in, just
Das ist so krank.
On this pressure. You want to make sure things that are going to thrive in this Trick Room situation are taken down. So you want to make sure this Amoonguss cannot be doing much on this turn. A round of Intimidate as well. The Incineroar that is actually doing less. Sludge Bomb into the Incineroar, just a little bit of damage.
And I think the fact that Tim only has 3 Pokemon remaining right now does give him such limited flexibility in which Pokemon obviously he can pivot into. This is returning to the field, but not being able to do what it wants. There's no Ursaluna to intimidate. There's no opportunity to really go for a fake out that's going to be detrimental.
But there is now the fake out that you can be using into the Amoonguss if you want to be trying to target into with the Ogapon. Or if you think you are seeing a Protect come out, try and hit something into another slot. With each passing turn, Nils, I mean, you're still looking for that opportune moment. And you don't have to play this fast as long as you're not necessarily taking too much damage on your Pokemon. When you have the Heartflame Ogapon on the opposing side staring you down, though, you know that that damage is inevitable.
I think this is where Tim has to start taking some risks here. And the issue with Tim's play here is it's high risk, but not a lot of reward. You've just got to get it right. If you want to go for something on your Incineroar, like the knockoff, trying to maybe predict if the Porygon 2 is going to come in and remove that Eviolite, make it a little bit more vulnerable, that could give him a little bit more of an edge in this match. Porygon 2 is joining the field, but what has Tim decided to do here?
You're looking for an opportunity to bring this Porygon 2 in. Amoonguss on the Protect. If Tim thought that the Amoonguss was protecting it doubled into the other slot, could be huge. But the Ivy Cudgel, no, hitting into the Amoonguss. So much respect for the little mushroom, but it means nothing for that Pokemon this turn. Parting shot from the Porygon 2 will drop it, but you will now at least be able to bring the Rillaboom back in, so you do still have Fake Out on this next turn to keep that Porygon 2 in check.
I think that's what Tim needs to do. Just keep bringing in Rillaboom, Incineroar, and just keep that fake up pressure on the field. Because when you actually look at the Pokemon, such as, you know, the Amoonguss and the Porygon 2, they're not dealing a massive offensive pressure. You can kind of safely bring these two pivoting Pokemon in, just so that they're primed and ready for you to hopefully catch one of the heavy hitters in the back.
When you're looking at something like the Porygon 2 on the field as well, it does not protect. So hitting into that Pokemon is always going to be safe. And you have to make a decision now if you're Nils, because the Amoonguss having just protected on that previous turn, if you try and go for the Protect once again, it's only a 1 in 3 chance. If you pivot out there, the Porygon 2 is such a safe hit into that spot. And you know that Tim has to respect the fact that that turn can be going up and has to stop it.
Yes, and something like the Incineroar could easily just come in for that Amoonguss. The Intimidate comes down. Not going to worry about an Ivy Cudgel. You're not going to worry about something coming through from the Rillaboom. But on that Ogapon on Tim's side, it is running that Stomping Tantrum. So again, if Tim can get into Nils' head and figure out what play he's getting and call it correctly, that could just give him an edge. The damage has to stop going down on the board at some point.
I think it's a big game of where does the Incineroar come in if you're a Tim here. And with the Porygon 2 swapping out, we're going to see that Incineroar, the Rampaging, rejoin the field. Intimidate will bring down the attack on both of these Pokemon. So wherever they're targeting, if it is into that Amoonguss or not, is going to be doing a little less. But it's time to see the first terrestrialization of her back.
Let's light up the stage here in the Masters Grand Final as the terrestrialization comes through on the Ogerpon. It's now going to get that embody aspect and get the attack boosted back up that it just had dropped by that Intimidate.
Make sure you can deal as much damage as you can. Make sure that Intimidate just gets evened out with that attack rise. But it's not going to be the only terrestrialization. It will be a Amoonguss as well. Dropping its grass typing into the ghost.
Aber geht Terraghost mit dem Amoonguss.
Yes, this also means that Amoonguss is safe from any of these takedowns that have been rolling around through this game. So just allowing a bit of defensive flexibility. The fake out was actually going down into that partner slot.
Stomping Tantrum
does go for the Stomping Tantrum, but goes into this ghost type and it does very little damage. We'll have to take a
mit dem Switch gerechnet, oder?
Allowing the Amoonguss to
Oh mein Gott, er hat Spawn auf Ogerpon gedrückt! What? Junge, Nils so am Kochen, holy shit!
And have this Ogerpon stopped in its tracks. Stomping Tantrum into the Amoonguss. A call that the Incineroar
That's crazy.
That would have been a super effective hit, but now it basically negated, and that is a huge momentum swing in Nils' favor.
Nils absolutely one step ahead of Tim here.
Nur weil er nicht schlafen kann wegen
die anderen schlafen.
This is exactly what we were saying in the team preview, and Nils is now in a great position to keep building.
Dankeschön für deinen Resub. Das ist appreciated. Dankeschön.
Down into the opposing Rillaboom. It does have to worry about maybe something the Rillaboom can throw in its direction. It could always just try and U-turn out of there or go for the Wood Hammer and boost it up by that grassy terrain. But that's why the Incineroar right next to that Amoonguss is the perfect partner in crime.
To spawn auf Ogerpon.
I would love to see the Rillaboom either go on the offensive, try and start dealing with the Amoonguss, since at this point the Amoonguss will just take a neutral hit from something like a Wood Hammer.
It's crazy,
or pivot back
heftige
out if
Moves
you're
gerade am
thinking that
Kochen
Nils is going to try and find an opportune moment for that Porygon 2 to come into place. First turn to sleep onto the Ogerpon. That was a guarantee. As parting shot will bring this back down to -1, so it can't be doing that big damage that Tim would like once it wakes up.
Ogerpon's not having a good time on the field right now. You know, it's taking a little bit of a nap, needs to wake up for these finals, as well as having all these stats dropped.
Sobald er halt
Trick Room rausholt, as well to try and bring in a Pokemon from the back, because you don't want it to have to take a spore either. That Incineroar is going to be a prime target to that Amoonguss, and particularly as it has now dropped its weakness, it's a very formidable threat. This U-turn doing nothing, and I think it's really kind of demonstrating on Nils' side the bulk and the brawl that he's got on his team.
And with the Porygon 2 coming on in, and the Incineroar hitting the field, this one is that Citrus Berry variety. So a Spore, if it is targeted into the slot, will be 2 sleeping Pokemon over on Tim's end. The Intimidate, not going to be impactful here. It's all eyes on this Amoonguss. Instead, attack into the Ogerpon. Huge opportunity, but still, you don't have to risk it. I think you're that far ahead.
I mean, we've spoken a lot about Ursaluna being the issue on this team, but actually has become this Amoonguss. The Incineroar, the Cloud Watcher, has joined the field, but it needs to watch its step. If it doesn't want to take a spore from this opposing Amoonguss, you cannot go for the fake out into it now that it has turned into a Ghost type as well, making it so difficult to disrupt.
And the Porygon 2, we see the lock-in, feeling safe that this is the primed pose position to try and go for that Trick Room. And from there, if Nils can get the Trick Room set up relatively free, it'll be great. Since there is still the fake-out option into the Porygon 2, you can go for that there, but then you can get punished by the Spore in return. So it is really, well, you gain a little, you lose a lot situation.
And even if you go for the fake out, as Tim has done here with a little cheeky critical hit, it doesn't stop the Porygon 2 for going for that Trick Room on the next turn.
War das zweite oder dritte Runde?
It's not going to be doing too much damage, even if it wakes up anyway, thanks to all the previous Intimidates. And once again, the Amoonguss just capitalizing on the opportunities it's got to get damage down on the board. This is really when Nils can start getting that Trick Room up. You could bring in a Pokemon like the Ursaluna.
Er geht für Terrablast. Er wird den Kill auf Ogerpon bekommen.
Muss jetzt aufwachen, wäre schon cool.
Ich meine, Ogerpon ist jetzt -2 Attack, ne? Geht Incineroar mit Parting Shot in P2? Oh, er wacht auf. Aber jetzt -2.
If it was into the Amoonguss, though, that is the freshly swapped in Incineroar, but no.
Porygon
2, no critical hit means absolutely
kein
no
Crit,
damage
Knock-off in den Incineroar-Slot. Ein bisschen nervig, aber ist okay. Terrablast sollte Ogerpon killen, nice.
Ja, okay.
Das ist over. Das ist so over.
Eigentlich schon, ja.
Der kriegt jetzt noch einen Fake-Out von Rillaboom raus und ansonsten Parting-Shottet der hier intimidated und so. Also da kann Tim gar nichts machen. Das Pokémon 2 trägt Immunity, ja. Der wird wahrscheinlich gleich noch seinen EUIC verlieren, aber der holt seinen Trick Room trotzdem raus. Ja, ja. Oga Hu.
Ich bin lieber trotzdem noch zum okay. Ich weiß es. Also ich weiß nicht, ob es ist.
Diese Runde ist ein bisschen schwierig, glaube ich.
Er holt alles.
Incineroar alleine gegen 4.
Ja, der macht das. Der ist das VGC stärkste Pokémon. Der macht das.
Na gut. Jetzt hat er kein Evilit mehr, aber... Oh no, the Evilit is gone.
Well, that makes it now. Porygon 2 just showing that it can still actually go for the Trick Room. It is capable of doing it once we forgot. Exactly, you know, it's done lots of good things on the field, but this is where it really is in its comfort zone. If I was Tim now, I'd start looking towards game 2. I do like the Pokemon options that he brought. It gave him flexibility, it gave him options, but Nils has those to find that bucket load. The issue that Tim has got is he has to find a way to capitalize on those moments, trying to catch the Ursaluna instead of allowing it to come in that turn 1, whereas Nils is able to have more flexibility in those. If he doesn't make 1 or 2 reads, it's not going to be super detrimental to his ball position, but if he's able to catch one, the momentum just swings completely in his favor.
I think where it was tricky is we saw Tim go ahead and make some of these plays, making these calls. Specifically, the one that stands out to me is when Incineroar could have come in for either slot and targeting the Stomping Tantrum into the onslaught with the treads of the Amoonguss, and it wasn't swapped in there, and all of a sudden you're doing no damage. So Tim showing that, yes, he will make this place, but Nils just kind of one step ahead. That was the same turn where we got to see the score fired off. And when you're losing the damage capability over on Tim's end, well then you are just losing so much in this match. And it even just started on that first turn. The Flutter Mains start coming out from him. Great way to shut down the Porygon 2, but all of a sudden we saw the swap. Ursaluna comes in and still just so much damage, and the Flutter Main couldn't stand out.
But this is what I mean by the flexibility of Nils, because going for that Spore, even if it didn't terrestrialize, it wasn't going to lose you the match in that turn. You still had a couple of options, and there wasn't that much capability, minus maybe a critical hit, for Tim to be able to capitalize on it. I think coming into this next match, Tim has the potential to do something with the Urshifu. Urshifu is a very interesting set here where it's running the Focus Sash. And in a format where we see a lot of Choice Scarf or even Mystic Water, having that little bit of respite, having that one second chance you can get from taking damage could be what he needs to be able to get a KO. Something like the Surging Strikes is going to be able to connect down and do big damage into opposing Pokemon like the Ursaluna, into the Incineroar. You just got to make sure you get the Porygon 2 and the Amoonguss, and that's easier said than done, Sierra.
It definitely is, especially when looking at the Amoonguss, since it is Rocky Helmet Amoonguss over on Nils' end. One wrong turn and that Amoonguss is swapped in, or one wrong call, and all of a sudden you're going to be taking so much damage that Focus Sash won't matter. Your health is going to be absolutely depleted, and it's going to be really, really tough time from there. It is nice, since you will have consistent critical hits with the Surging Strikes, that you won't have the same pivoting coming out from Nils, the parting toss the Incineroar to lower it, but it's still so risky.
I think Tim has to take a couple of these risks, though. Nils is one game away from becoming the European International Champion. Tim has to be able to dig deep not once but twice in order to take the title.
Okay, let's go.
Nils, I think, looking very calm.
Und Nils hat diesmal sein eigenes Flattermain mit. Crazy. Spider-Man.
Great minds think alike, heading into our grand finals, our second match here. Booster energy, photosynthesis activated on Tim's end. This will be the speed, making sure this Flutter Main is going to be the fastest thing around.
Ich warte immer, bis die irgendwie so Just Legends, Level Up oder so.
We got another
Nils
one
hat auch.
coming out.
Nee, Nils hat Special Attack Boost. Okay.
This is the thing, the speed on Tim's side, very, very nice to be able to go for something like that Icy Wind, get a little bit of chip, drop it further, or even just fire off a powerful Moonblast into that opposing Flutter Main. The issue is Nils' one is going to be able to hit back even harder thanks to that special attack boost.
When you're looking at it, though, since you are going to be outsped, you do not want to be having a powerful hit targeted into you with something like the Shadow Ball coming out from Tim. So you have to be putting a little bit of respect from this. Since we actually don't have that move over on Tim's end, we could just see something to kind of slow the speed. But that means that you have a way, you don't have that powerful way to pressure. Though a Terra Fairy Moonblast would still deal loads.
It would, and the Shadow Ball on Nils' side, actually, that is something you don't want to have to worry about.
Okay,
because
protect.
it could go down and get a big amount of damage, but instead, Flutter Main actually choosing to protect, maybe see what Nils is going to go for here. Is that Shadow Ball a wise defensive play on Tim's side of the field? But of course, no fake out to be seen from these Incineroars. One knockoffing into the other. So now the Incineroar's going to lose his Citrus Berry, does not have that in his back pocket for later on.
Parting Shot in den
Incineroar on Tim's side utilizes the
Nein,
opportunity to try and drop that special attack boost thanks to the parting shot.
Naja, okay. Aber ich sag, Fluttermane -1 wiederbringen ist ganz nice. Aber Incineroar und die City Spray weg haben auch nice. Also beide haben hier schon wichtigen Progress gemacht.
That boosts
Oh,
your
dafür
energy
kenne ich
that you
Refriend
had.
zu wenig
So you
Musik.
do have to be able to capitalize on this while you can. Since it is slower, you can still be threatening some pressure into it too.
And that's gone for the match now as well. It's not like the Fluttermane can switch out and get the boosted energy again. It has to now keep itself at this neutral position. Tim really taking his time to think which Pokemon he wants to bring in here. He has to call every turn perfectly, and it is going to be the Ogerpon. Breathing a sigh of relief, there's no Amoonguss in sight, and again, thanks to the speed advantage it's got, it's now in a prime position to deal out damage. You could go for something like the Ivy Cudgel into that opposing Fluttermane and remove it from the field.
Protect
and regardless of what Nil has in the back,
aber ich habe
nothing
so ein
really
bisschen das
wants to
Gefühl,
switch
Tim
into an
double-targetet den
unintimidated
Incineroar-Slot.
Ivy Cudgel. You could even take a further
Ich glaube,
Crystallization.
Tim double-targetet den Incineroar-Slot.
Interesting to note here, now that we get an opportunity to see what Nils has brought to this match, this is a complete pivot.
Ich hätte an Tim schnell den
Incineroar. We have that little bit of information that Tim does it, so I'm intrigued to see if he thinks going on forward, if there is that trick remote in the back.
Das ist halt die Frage, ob der so gut ist wie ich.
Swapping out, that maybe this match isn't quite what it seems as Amoonguss joins the field.
This is so typical of Nils' playstyle as well. You think you've got his matchup down, and he actually shakes things about completely, throws you completely off your game. We are going to see the Terrestrialization come out, and it is going to be on that Ogerpon half flame, getting the embody aspect boost and getting +1 attack. Thanks to the speed, momentum that Tim has got early on in this game too, this is where things could really hurt. Amoonguss or Fluttermane does not want to take an Ivy Cudgel.
Whether you make the call or whether you made
Vielleicht
the
das
safe
wohl,
play,
der
this
kann froh
protect
sein, dass
on
ich
the
nicht da war.
Fluttermane coming out from Nils, because you don't want to be taking any of that damage this time around.
Moonblast.
Moonblast would be firing if
Und?
he freshly swapped into the Amoonguss. Very little damage
Und,
there.
okay, Stomping Tantrum ist... hat den schon double-targetet, wie ich gesagt habe. Hat er schon gut gemacht, aber er ist schon in Midground-Play gegangen.
War schon fast so gut wie ich, aber halt nicht komplett so.
You can only see that Tim was targeting down that Incineroar, trying to remove the potential intimidates from the field, because that's something that the
Es war schon glaube ich schon der beste Play von Tim. War ein guter Midground-Play.
fake out momentum that Nils demonstrated so perfectly in game 1. The issue is now the Incineroar's in the back. Nils can freely bring that in, go for an intimidate here.
With the Incineroar as well, we fall into that same game as game 1. Where does the Incineroar swap in? Because the Ivy Cudgel targeted into that slot is not going to be doing much. And if you all of a sudden anticipate, hey, I think the Incineroar swapping in here and hit a Stomping Tantrum into a slot, we already got to see that the damage into the Amoonguss, it wasn't too much. Maybe with that double up, it could just hit that kicker, but it would definitely be close. Fluttermane had to protect the last time around, so we'll switch this time.
Yes, doubling down on the safety here for Nils, bringing in the Incineroar to the field once again to get that intimidate and kind of put the Ogerpon back in check a little bit as this game is progressing out. Fluttermane also going defensive on Tim's side, not wanting to have to take any potential Shadow Ball coming through from Nils' Fluttermane. And look at that, Sierra, a little bit of a passive turn from both our players.
A chance to kind of scout out what's going on.
Sehr schön. Jetzt kann Nils Ogerpon Fake outen. Luca, danke schön für den Resub. Ogerpon Fake outen. Und Spore auf Fluttermane raushauen.
Of course, you can just go for the spiky shield and just target into the Amoonguss. Since it had protected, it could be safe, and it is already low enough that could be trying to do something. But again, the move selection and move choice be tough. You have the taunt though.
That's the thing, Fluttermane's key in this point. It can go for the taunt.
Okay, ich wollte gerade sagen. Ich glaube, er geht für den Flairblitz. Das ist krank. Ja, Luca, danke schön für 20 Gifted Subs. Holy shit. Vielen lieben Dank. Du kommst auch gleich ins Spin, aber erst schauen wir noch das Finale.
Yes.
Vielen lieben Dank. Yes, danke schön. Vielen lieben Dank. Danke.
Yes.
Take the opportunity to swap out now. And if it is a taunt into the swap, then it would be a wasted turn. Taunt though,
okay, taunt in den Incineroar-Slot.
Making sure that we can't see something like a parting shot coming out.
Honestly, love to see that as a way to shut down that Incineroar.
Ist nicht für links gegangen, crazy. Ich mach ganz kurz just den Nerds durchlaufen. Aber ich muss es kleiner machen und wegpacken.
Just getting a little bit on the board. Incineroar now going for the Flare Blitz. Again, not getting these KOs, but damage is being dealt from both our trainers. They're starting to switch up onto the offensive.
And with the Fluttermane being such a huge threat, going on the offensive with that Flare Blitz instead is a really good call. Not only do you cover for that potential taunt, but you make sure you can do the damage into this turn. And now that you're Shifu hitting the field over on Nils' end of the field, it is the choice scarf. So when we're looking at the speed, it's probably going to be the fastest thing here, which makes it so dangerous when you're staring down these Pokemon. These
stronger Dings in Flutter, aber Tim hat es auch gut gespielt.
We don't see any follow me on there, and it has got the utility to go for something like a spiky shield, but in the face of something like an Urshifu, that's going to be null and void thanks to the unseen fist ability. That is one speedy Pokemon for sure. This is where you have to make these split-second decisions of what you lock into. Looks like Nils is really trying to target down into that opposing Flutter Mane, worrying that the speed boost might be too much for the Urshifu, keeps it safe in the back.
Weren't kidding about the split-second decision. I was getting a little worried here at this point. Amoonguss coming back out onto the field. Icy Wind is going to be lowering both of the speeds of these Pokemon. Nice little chunk of damage onto the Amoonguss, all things considered. You want to keep chipping down at that now even more.
Crit gegen Incineroar, naja.
The regenerator. Now, you will be able to fire off an attack with this Ogerpon
Whatever
Woodhammer. Again, great swap coming out from Nils to make sure there's never an opportunity for Tim to get ahead.
This Amoonguss really is the thorn in Tim's side. In game 1, it was so disruptive, and now it's just being completely annoying on the field. Flutter Mane does go down, however, Nils is perfectly pivoted in a situation where his Urshifu in the back is safe and sound.
Oh, jetzt geht's los. Nils ist loaded.
It's so difficult for Tim to maneuver. You already have drop shot grass typing on that Ogerpon. A Surging Strike is going to be able to get the knockout. The Incineroar, again, not going to be able to appreciate that. But I wonder what Tim's last Pokemon is going to be.
It's so tough, though. The Flutter Mane's queen for a reason with the kingdom falling.
Pepsi loaded is over.
Potentially a chance for things to be falling apart because you needed the speed on your end. You needed the capability at the Icy Winds and to shut down Nils' team. And when the things like your Shifu is preserved, we won't even have to play the speed game going down on the line. So even when that Pokemon re-hits the field, there's a possibility for it to wreak havoc. You still have something still potential that your Shifu instead, it's going to be hitting the field. This can't be dealing damage, but it doesn't still have the same speed that Nils does.
That's the thing, the Urshifu does have the focus sash, so you do have a tiny bit of respite from maybe taking one super effective attack or just any damage at this point. You can always apply pressure with something like that Surging Strikes into the opposing Incineroar. I just wonder if the damage that the opposing Urshifu had taken on Nils' side is going to be enough to maybe allow the opposing Urshifu to try and get the KO. Nils going to switch things up in the ball position, wants to keep that Intimidate for the Urshifu and the Ogerpon a little bit later on, and brings that Flutter Mane back into the field, which I really think isn't a key piece in this match right now.
Ich bin beide gerade so ultra passiv, das ist insane. Ich bin so vorsichtig.
There was a close combat into that. It won't do anything. An Ivy Cudgel into the protecting Amoonguss. You don't see protect too often in front of the Urshifu, but making sure you can spry past.
Schön, Nils, schön.
Again, no momentum.
Ist das krass.
Straight in his tracks.
Nils is making moves and counter moves and calling them perfectly, bringing that Flutter Mane in. It can now apply some pressure with something like a Moonblast or even going for a Shadow Ball just to get some damage on the board. I think you don't want to go for something like the Substitute or Protect here. You just want to make sure you're trying to get some damage and getting that momentum, because as soon as you get rid of the sash on the opposing Urshifu, then your own Urshifu can start cleaning up. You just got to knock out a few Pokemon first.
And that's going to be the tough part into this. And Nils has done such a great job at making sure at every step in the way that Tim has not been able to make this move. And Tim, it has to be a huge call going into this next turn, a big KO. And with the Urshifu swapping out, I don't know if he'll be able to get it. Bringing Incineroar back into the field, you'll have to fake out next time around.
Also nicht ziemlich gut, aber der hat keine Sperry mehr. Nils wechselt jetzt zum Moves raus in Flutter Mane, und wenn er jetzt eine Ivy Cudgel in den Amoonguss dort, kommt der übertrieben geil. Nee, Amoonguss in den Incineroar und Ivy Cudgel irgendwie fürs Beigestellt. Ja, ist voll okay. Vollkommen okay für Nils. Das ist schöner Schaden. Oh, the special tech drop, let's go!
Just below half health at this point. We do have -1 attack over on the Ogerpon, so you do look better and better by the moment.
The thing is, you can't safely switch that Ogerpon out to try and reset that, because you don't want your Urshifu in the back
to have its focus sash broken
unnecessarily. Incineroar looks to be in a little bit of a precarious spot about whether it can take another one of those Moonblasts. I think the chip it got earlier from the knockoff was critical there. It might be able to hang on if one more Moonblast finds its mark.
And that'll be the key thing going into this. And if you lose that Incineroar, sure, you get the Urshifu in, but I think that you're just going to be down too many strong Pokemon in this match, where Nils, I mean, his Pokemon just feel like they have not been touched. With the constant regenerator from the Amoonguss, you're gaining so much momentum, and even more now.
Fake out damage from big. Schöner Moonblast. Crit.
Holding on this time around.
Just able to hang on and go for a parting shot. That's just going to be able to reduce a little bit of the offensive pressure on Fluttermane's side. But I think you make a great observation, Sierra. The damage is all coming through from Nils' side. Tim is constantly being forced to go for these defensive plays or is being intimidated, and the damage is just not stacking up on Nils' side. You do get the Urshifu in here now, so you have the potential to go for these surging strikes, and it is in unintimidated.
It is. You still are at risk of taking a very powerful move from this Fluttermane. So you have the sash, you can take one hit, but you have to make the most momentum out of this Pokemon while you can. The Surging Strikes will hit well into either Pokemon on the field, but you also have to anticipate if there is a potential immunity swap that could be dangerous as well.
And there is no spread move on the Fluttermane, no dazzling game, so it has to choose its target. It's gone for the Moonblast. Urshifu taken right down to its focus.
Das hat ihn nicht auf seinen Fokus. Das war imaginärer Fokuscode wahrscheinlich.
Holy shit.
Aber er kriegt jetzt den Kill auf Fluttermane, oder?
Ja, aber
Warte, die Frage ist, Tim ist für Panikshot gegangen, ne? Der ist nicht dafür für den Dings-Kill gegangen, für den, oh, wir können den Incineroar jetzt wieder reinholen. Ogrephon ist -2. Er kann jetzt hier Urshifu, Free Urshifu reinwechseln, immer Surging Strikes in den Ogrephon-Slot drücken und mit Incineroar immer in den Urshifu-Slot Fake-Outen. Immer.
Ich meine, Urshifu und Incineroar sind halt nur barely.
It does mean that Nils is in control.
And when you're looking at the Urshifu,
also das ist komplett free gerade. Je nach Game aus, ja. Ich glaube auch. Fake-Out in den Urshifu-Slot, Surging Strikes in den Ogrephon-Slot. Dann danke für den Resub, das ist sehr appreciated, dankeschön.
Yes, got a lot of momentum with that Urshifu with that KO, but it really hurt that you couldn't get that critical hit onto the Fluttermane with such great pivoting from Nils to negate the attack.
That would have jumped Tim right back into
die sind gespielt. Ah ja, das ist GG. Das ist GG. GG. Nils hat.
Nils, ich habe immer an dich beliebt.
Nils?
Tim.
Ich habe schon immer in Nils Bettwäsche geschlafen.
Schon immer.
War schon von Anfang an
Nils.
Let's go! Nils hat das Pepsi-Diff.
Das wird die Pepsi-Diff.
The Pokemon is celebrating, the crowd is already applauding. You can see Nils as well because he knows the Incineroar is the last Pokemon standing to take him to the title.
Go through the formalities, Incineroar hitting the
Pepsi,
Pepsi. Out of this match. It was well played, but Nils
geht sogar für Terra. Let's go! Stark.
GG.
Stark, Nils, stark. Eine Maschine.